You don't need to beg for closure. You don't need to explain your worth to someone who threw it away like it meant nothing. If he erased you so easily, then maybe it's time you did the same. Not to hurt him, but to finally start healing you. No warning, no long goodbye. Just a quiet decision that says, I'm done giving chances to someone who never deserved them. In this video, I'm going to show you why walking away without apology isn't heartless, it's healthy, and why disappearing silently might be the loudest thing you ever do. Erasing someone from your life isn't about getting revenge or proving a point. It's about reclaiming your peace, protecting your energy, and honoring what you deserve. When someone walks away from you carelessly, dismisses your feelings, or treats you like you're disposable, it creates an emotional vacuum. And the instinct many people have is to fill that space with more noise, arguing, chasing, posting, explaining, venting. But that noise rarely brings relief. It delays healing and ties your sense of power to how much the other person reacts. The truth is, when someone erases you, they've already told you who they are and how they value you. You don't need to argue with that. You don't need to beg them to rewrite their story of you. What you need is to write your own. And that begins with the quiet, difficult, but necessary decision to step back, not to retaliate, but to recenter. The erasure isn't for their punishment, it's for your protection. Peace isn't loud, it doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from clarity, and that clarity shows up when you stop giving your time, thoughts, and emotions to someone who's already let go. Many people think that erasing someone has to look dramatic, blocking, deleting, ghosting. And while those tools have their place, the deeper kind of erasure isn't external. It's internal. It's the moment you no longer carry their voice in your head when you make decisions. It's the day you stop replaying the last text or wondering what they're thinking now. It's the shift from "why wasn't I enough" to "I deserve more than this." And yes, it feels unfair. It feels unfair to be the one who cares more, who feels more, who gave more, only to be left behind. But that is exactly why you have to reclaim your peace, because you've already given enough to someone who couldn't meet you halfway. Now you give that energy to yourself. You stop waiting for the apology. You stop needing them to acknowledge your worth. And instead, you start acting like it. Choosing peace often feels like weakness at first, especially when the world rewards people who fight, post, speak up, or win the breakup. But there's a quiet kind of strength in not needing to be seen. There's power in detaching with dignity. There's healing in moving forward without needing to explain why. And most importantly, there's freedom in letting go of someone who couldn't hold you with care. When you erase someone, not out of hate but out of healing, you create space. Space for joy, for friendships that feel mutual, for late nights that don't end in overthinking, for mornings that begin without dread. You're not erasing them to pretend they never mattered. You're erasing them because they no longer belong in the chapter you're writing next. You're not seeking revenge. You're seeking restoration. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of constant emotional chaos. It's waking up and realizing that you're no longer carrying someone else's damage as your burden. So no, you're not being heartless. You're being honest with yourself, and that honesty might be the first act of real self-love you've given yourself in a long time. You're not erasing them because you're cold. You're erasing them because you're finally warm enough to yourself to say, "This isn't what I deserve." And that's where healing really begins. You don't need a dramatic exit to make your decision matter. In fact, the more peaceful your departure, the more powerful it becomes. So many people get caught in the trap of waiting for the perfect ending, that final conversation where they say everything that's been building up inside them, where the other person finally understands the pain they caused, or where they get the validation they were denied. But the truth is, that moment rarely comes. And even if it does, it rarely delivers what you hoped it would. Waiting for the drama, the closure, or the emotional payoff keeps you emotionally hooked. It makes your healing dependent on someone else's willingness to listen, apologize, or change. But healing begins the moment you take your power back, not by making a scene, but by making a decision. A quiet one, a final one, and yes, a hard one. You don't have to slam a door for it to be closed. You don't have to scream "I'm done" for it to be over. When someone has shown you time and time again that your love, your loyalty, your effort, all of it, is something they're willing to risk or discard, then your response doesn't need to be theatrical, it needs to be true. People often mistake silence for weakness, or distance for avoidance. But sometimes it's the strongest thing you can offer yourself. A dramatic eggs, it might feel satisfying in the moment, but a decisive eggs, it is what frees you in the long run. It's not about the volume of your goodbye, it's about the finality of it. That's what matters, that's what holds weight. What's more, when someone erases you without warning, when they leave your life without explanation, without care, without fighting for what they had, they already wrote the ending for you. They already chose to make it messy. You don't have to match that energy. You're not here to prove a point. You're here to protect your peace. And sometimes that means walking away in silence, not because you don't care anymore, but because you've realized your energy is better spent on something real, something mutual, something that sees you. The real power lies in choosing not to engage in the performance, not because you're avoiding the emotion, but because you're honoring it. You're acknowledging the pain, processing it quietly, and moving forward with intention. That's maturity. That's growth. You realize that your love doesn't need to be thrown in someone's face for it to be valid. It was real, even if it wasn't appreciated, and now your silence doesn't mean defeat. It means you're done fighting battles that only you were willing to show up for. A decisive exit isn't rushed, it's thoughtful. It doesn't look like blocking someone mid-argument. It looks like sitting with yourself, understanding what you've been through, and finally saying, no more. No more chasing, no more begging, no more performing emotional CPR for someone who barely noticed you were struggling to breathe. You walk away not because it's easy, but because staying is harder, and when you walk away without warning, you're not being cruel. You're just being finished. There's a difference. You gave the benefit of the doubt. You gave your time, your patience, your best. If they didn't take care of that, if they didn't value it, they don't get to know when the light goes out. You just go quietly, completely, and when they turn around and realize you're gone, there will be no dramatic moment to re-engage with, just the silence of someone who finally chose themselves. When someone erases you from their life with ease, without explanation, effort, or regret, it's tempting to want to respond in kind, to mirror that same level of indifference, to match their coldness with your own. But the truth is, your power doesn't come from mimicking their behavior. It comes from rising above it, from choosing self-respect over emotional retaliation, and from setting standards instead of playing games. Matching someone's behavior when it falls below your values pulls you down to a level that compromises your integrity. It makes their choices your guide rather than your own sense of self-worth. When someone treats you poorly, when they ignore your boundaries, or show you that they're unwilling to invest in the relationship the way you have, it can feel natural to respond with the same energy, cold shoulder for cold shoulder, silence for silence, detachment for detachment. But doing that keeps you entangled in a dynamic that already hurt you. It keeps you reactive, not intentional. Exceeding their behavior means you don't lower your standards just because they couldn't meet them. You don't let someone else's lack of emotional maturity dictate how you carry yourself. Just because they erased you impulsively doesn't mean you need to erase them with bitterness. Instead, you do it with clarity, with finality, with self-respect, because your standards were never meant to be contingent on their behavior. They're rooted in how you treat yourself. There's a difference between saying "I'm done" because you want to teach someone a lesson and saying "I'm done" because you've finally learned yours. That difference matters. When you try to match someone's careless energy, you remain emotionally tied to the outcome. You want them to feel what you felt, hurt how you hurt, miss you the way you missed them. But when you exceed their behavior with grace, you let go of that emotional dependency. You stop trying to make them feel something, and you start focusing on how you feel in your own space, on what brings you peace, on what helps you heal. Exceeding their behavior doesn't mean being passive or ignoring your hurt. It means you process that hurt without letting it define your next move. You can feel the pain and still act with dignity. You can acknowledge the betrayal and still choose not to betray yourself by stooping to a level you'll later regret. You don't need to be heartless to be strong. You just need to be consistent with the version of yourself that you're proud of. So instead of asking, what would hurt them the way they hurt me, ask, what decision honors who I want to be? Because in the end, you're not here to win a silent war. You're here to protect your energy, to walk away clean, to disengage not out of spite, but out of strength. When you refuse to play by their rules, you're not losing anything. You're just stepping out of a game you never agreed to in the first place. Let them live with their choices, you live with yours. Let them wonder why you didn't fight back, why you didn't explode, why you didn't chase. And let the answer be simple, because you were never trying to hurt them. You were just finally ready to stop hurting yourself. Your standards don't adjust for someone's inability to meet them. They remain firm so that the right people know how to treat you and the wrong ones quietly fade away. You don't need to explain yourself when you decide to walk away. You don't need to craft a final message, write a long text, or wait for the perfect moment to say everything you wish they had heard along the way. The truth is, if someone didn't listen when it mattered, they're not going to hear you now. When someone has ignored your value, dismissed your feelings, or taken your presence for granted, your silence is not avoidance, it's a message. It speaks louder than any confrontation ever could, and it cuts deeper than any well-worded goodbye. The desire to speak, to explain, to gain understanding is deeply human. You want them to know what they did. You want them to feel the impact of their behavior, to sit with the reality of your pain, to finally recognize what they lost. But often, the words you're aching to say fall on deaf ears. People hear what they want to hear, and more often than not, they've already decided on their version of the story. So what happens? You exhaust yourself trying to make your voice heard by someone who was never really listening. You drain your own healing in the hope that they'll finally get it. That's where the real shift happens, when you realize that your absence can say everything your words couldn't. When you stop pleading to be understood and instead choose to walk away without a performance, that moment is powerful. Not because it creates regret in the other person, though it might, but because it creates peace within you. You are no longer waiting on someone else's reaction to feel validated. You are no longer holding your breath for closure. You are giving yourself what they couldn't, resolution. People underestimate the weight of silence. It's easy to ignore someone who's always available. It's easy to overlook someone who's constantly explaining themselves, giving second chances, trying to fix the disconnect. But when that person disappears without fanfare, when they stop replying, stop showing up, stop chasing, something shifts. Suddenly there's a void, a space where noise used to be, and in that silence the truth settles in. You're no longer there and you're not coming back. That's when they begin to feel the absence. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the way you want, but it will happen because your presence once filled a space they assumed would never be empty. And now that space is quiet, the texts aren't coming, the apologies aren't being asked for, you didn't shout your worth, you simply stopped offering it. This kind of silence isn't passive. It's not about pretending not to care. It's an active choice to protect your dignity. It's the decision to no longer hand your emotions to someone who doesn't know what to do with them. You aren't trying to control how they feel, you're choosing how you heal. There's a big difference. And once you understand that, you begin to value your energy differently. You stop fighting battles that leave you bleeding alone. You stop rehearsing conversations they'll never understand. You stop waiting. The irony is, many people only understand what they had once it's gone. And by the time they do, your silence has already become your answer. You don't need to scream, cry, or beg. You don't need a final word. You just leave quietly, confidently, without needing to explain what they should have already known. Because in the end, the loudest goodbye is the one that doesn't need to be said. When someone shows you how easily they can lose you, believe them. It's a painful truth, but one that can save you from years of confusion and heartache. Too often, people hold on to hope. Hope that things will change, that feelings will deepen, or that the person who hurt them will suddenly see their worth. But actions speak louder than words, and if someone erased you without hesitation, without fight, without a second thought, they have already revealed how much you mean to them. Accepting this reality is not about giving up or being bitter. It's about respecting yourself enough to stop investing where you're not valued. When someone acts like you don't matter, it's easy to question yourself. You might wonder if you weren't enough, if you did something wrong, or if you missed signs along the way. These questions are natural, but they should never overshadow the facts. The fact is that if they could erase you with such ease, it wasn't because you lacked anything. It was because they were unwilling or unable to value what you brought to the relationship. Their actions are not a reflection of your worth, but rather a reflection of their capacity to love, commit, or appreciate. Believing what their behavior shows you means stopping the endless cycle of chasing explanations and second chances. It means stopping the mental replay of what-ifs and if-onlys. The truth they gave you should be the truth you accept. When someone shows they can lose you easily, it's a clear signal that you are not a priority, and in matters of the heart, priorities matter more than promises. It doesn't matter what they said. What matters is how they acted. Words can be empty, but actions rarely lie. This acceptance is the first step toward reclaiming your power. Once you believe what they showed you, you're no longer waiting for someone else's validation or approval. You stop seeking permission to move on. You stop hoping they'll change their mind or realize what they lost. Instead, you start creating space for the people who do see your value, who cherish your presence, and who fight to keep you in their lives. Believing their actions means you trust your instincts and your experiences. You acknowledge that the pain of being erased is real, but that pain is not permanent. It's a signal, a turning point, a moment to reset your expectations and boundaries. It means you learn to say no to toxic patterns and yes to your own happiness. It means you stop settling for crumbs and start demanding the full table. There's freedom in this kind of belief. Freedom from the emotional roller coaster of hope and disappointment. Freedom from trying to rewrite someone else's story to fit your dreams. Freedom from being trapped in a narrative where you are the one who is constantly giving, forgiving, and bending. When you accept that they showed you their true colors, you stop wasting your energy trying to repaint the picture. You walk away with your head held high, knowing that your worth does not depend on someone else's ability to recognize it. Of course, this is easier said than done. Accepting that someone could lose you so easily cuts deep. It challenges your self-esteem and shakes your faith in love, but it also offers clarity. Clarity about what you want and deserve. Clarity about who you should keep close and who you should let go. When you believe their actions, you are no longer confused by mixed signals or false promises. You are guided by reality, and reality can be beautiful when you're ready to embrace it. because once you believe how easily they lost you, you're free to find the people who will never let you go. The ones who will fight for you, respect you, and make you feel seen every single day. You learn that losing someone who doesn't value you is not a loss at all. It's a gift. A gift of space, peace, and the chance to build something better. So believe them, believe their actions. And then believe in yourself enough to walk away, heal, and rise. Choosing to show no mercy doesn't mean becoming bitter or cruel. It means refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It means drawing a clear line between what you will accept and what you won't tolerate. Mercy, in the traditional sense, is often seen as kindness or forgiveness. But in relationships where you've been undervalued or erased, mercy can sometimes become a form of enabling. It can become giving endless chances to someone who never truly appreciated them, hoping that one day things will change. But no matter how much you want to be compassionate, there comes a point when mercy ceases to serve your healing and starts to hold you back. No, mercy in this context isn't about punishing the other person. It's about protecting yourself. It's about recognizing that kindness doesn't have to mean weakness, and that being firm with your boundaries is one of the strongest forms of self-love. You don't owe someone who erased you repeatedly the gift of your continued patience or presence. When you've already shown up with your heart open, when you've already given more than enough, extending mercy can sometimes be inviting the same pain to return. Choosing no mercy means saying enough is enough, not because you want to hurt, but because you want to heal. This decision is one of empowerment. It's reclaiming your agency and refusing to let past disappointments define your future. You're not blind to the good that person might have shown or the memories you shared. You're simply refusing to let nostalgia or hope blind you to the reality of how they treated you. Mercy without boundaries becomes self-sabotage. It keeps you stuck in a cycle where your love is one-sided, your efforts go unnoticed, and your heart remains vulnerable to being broken again. At the same time, no mercy doesn't mean no kindness. It's important to distinguish between being unkind and being firm. You can release someone from your life without bitterness. You can walk away without malice. You can protect your peace while still holding compassion in your heart, for yourself and even for them. Mercy isn't a transaction where kindness must be reciprocated. It's a choice you make from strength, not weakness. But when that choice leads to repeated harm or neglect, withholding mercy becomes an act of respect for yourself and your emotional well-being. There's a powerful clarity that comes with this kind of no-mercy mindset. You stop rationalizing bad behavior. You stop making excuses for someone who didn't show up for you. You stop hoping for change that isn't coming. Instead, you align your actions with your worth. You let go of people who don't see your value and make space for those who do. This isn't coldness, it's wisdom, it's maturity. It's the kind of strength that says, I will not settle for less than what I deserve. No mercy also means no more settling. Settling is often disguised as patience or forgiveness, but at its core, it's lowering your standards because you fear being alone or you hope things will eventually get better. When you choose no mercy, you're choosing to honor yourself instead. You're choosing to wait for the love, respect, and care that matches your heart's capacity. You're saying that you won't compromise your happiness for someone else's convenience, and this choice has ripple effects. When you stop giving mercy to those who don't deserve it, you free yourself from emotional exhaustion. You protect your boundaries, and you create a healthier environment for your future relationships. You send a message to yourself and to others that you value yourself enough not to accept less than you deserve. You build resilience. You reclaim your narrative. In the end, no mercy is a form of self-preservation wrapped in dignity. It's not about revenge or punishment. It's about standing firm in your truth and refusing to be anyone's second choice or fallback. It's about loving yourself enough to walk away, to heal, and to create a life where your worth is never questioned. This kind of no mercy isn't harsh, it's necessary. It's the boundary that protects your heart so it can one day love freely, fully, and without compromise. At the end of the day, choosing to erase someone who erased you isn't about cruelty or revenge. It's about reclaiming your power, protecting your peace, and honoring your worth. It's about recognizing when enough is enough and having the courage to walk away without looking back. When you decide to let go silently, decisively, and without apology, you're not just closing a chapter, you're opening the door to a new beginning filled with self-respect and clarity. Remember, your value isn't defined by someone else's inability to see it, and your peace is worth far more than any drama or heartbreak. So stand firm, choose yourself, and trust that the right people will never need you to erase yourself for them to stay.